So welcome ladies and gentlemen to another fun video in the world of effectively tearing down Marvel. So not that I take any massive joy over this, but it is interesting to highlight their flaws and their flaws that are so easily rectified. So the Marvels came out and it was obviously a huge failure. Like it was a massive bomb. I think it's still currently the lowest grossing Marvel movie, which is real bad. Real bad. This movie suffered for many reasons. Not least of all, of course, Brie Larson was involved. Not a hugely likable individual. But the director was thrown under the bus by Marvel and Disney and Kevin Feige. But she's kind of throwing them under the bus now and using something which we can all kind of believe because it's something which Marvel has a long history doing, which is not locking scripts down. So this dropped on today, and I thought it was just worthwhile covering. And it just says the Marvels director Nia DaCosta suggests that MCU sequel suffered due to a lack of a really solid script. Okay, yeah, I mean, I can believe that. Marvel is currently shooting the Avengers Doomsday movie, a movie which they've paid the directors and the lead star, Robert Downey Jr. Or maybe he's not even the lead star because he's the villain, isn't he? But they've paid accumulatively those three people close to $200 million for both movies. Not, each, as in $200 million for each movie, as in just combined, the trio, close to $200 million for both movies. I mean, that's mental. That's insane. And they're shooting that film without a locked-in script. Not very good, is it? We also know this because Captain America Brave New World didn't have a locked-in script. They did lots of reshoots, lots of changes. And we know that actually, it's even on this website, there's concept art which they commissioned of Sidewinder, but in his true form, not the human that we had. I mean, it's mental. So I thought we'd take a look at this because it is funny. It's one of those things that I find comical. And it's something which Marvel has had a huge issue with. And so now that this individual's come out and said this, it's worthwhile covering. So, let's take a look. And also, make no mistake, I'm not trying to let Nia DaCosta off at all with any blame or anything like that. But they are just a part of the Marvel machine as well. And they're a relatively newbie director. So, they're not as culpable for the failure of Marvel as Marvel is, obviously. And so it says this: despite decent reviews, 2023's The Marvels only ended up taking in just over $200 million worldwide to claim the dubious honour of becoming Marvel Studios' lowest grossing movie of all time, which is just mental considering that the previous one was claimed to be $1 billion hit. So the MCU sequel certainly proved to be divisive, but the same could be said of Captain Marvel, and that went on to become $1 billion smash hit when it was released back in 2019. Claimed to be. There's lots of disputing that, but okay. So, while speaking with The Hollywood Reporter about taking the helm of 28 years later The Bone Temple, director Nia DaCosta suggested that the major issue with the Marvels lays with the script, which I can believe. I think everyone can believe. There's obviously more issues than that, obviously. There's so many problems, and a lot of it is accumulative. So, a lot of people kind of gloss over the fact that a lot of people just checked out. And I say, this is terrible English. A lot of reviewers, mainstream media pundits, commentators, a lot of these individuals overlook the fact that predominant element of the audience checked out at Endgame. That was their jump-off point, because Marvel was in decline previous to Endgame, right? Like, the sheen had begun to wear off, and people just checked out at Endgame. That was their jump-off point. And then there was loads of other things as well. It's not just the fact that this film was bad. This was just one of those movies that suffered as a result of this accumulative effect. But it says this. Well, she says this. Making the 28 years later sequel was one of the best filmmaking experiences I've had. One of the issues I had with Candyman and Marvels was the lack of a really solid script. Well, that's hilarious. Which is always going to just wreak havoc on the whole process. But Alex Garland hands you a script and you're like, this is amazing. You don't really have to change it. Although I did. I basically asked for more infected. That was like my big contribution. I mean, good, yeah. Like, there was a distinct lack of the rage virus infected in 28 Years Later. Even though I liked that film, which I know loads of people didn't, but whatever. So this is quite funny. I mean, these are two films, right? Candyman and Marvels. Those are two films which had extensive leaks behind them. Extensive leaks. So many things were leaking. I did a reveal video for Candyman nearly like a year before it released, and obviously it all came to pass. Like, it was all completely true. And Marvels as well. There were so many leaks to do with Marvels. It's always so funny when these films, you know, they sort of, well, it's hilarious that they're getting lumped together here, but it's even more comical understanding just how much these films were leaking. And it's all just from script, right? People just thought it was absolute garbage. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, this is just confirmation, isn't it? That, you know, Marvel, their scripts aren't solid. They're just not. So she says this: I inherited an amazing cast, then I was given the leeway to cast the rest of the film. There were a couple of locations I inherited. I was given the leeway to develop all the other locations. Some of it overlapped, like the character Samson. Danny and I would collaborate a bit on the look, but at the end of the day, Danny shoots so different from the way I shoot. And this is, of course, just discussing 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And also said some other bits and pieces. You know, DaCosta revealed that the version of the movie that we saw in theatres was also very different to the one that she shot. So it got absolutely hacked to pieces in the edit bay. They had a date and they were prepping certain things, and you just have to lean into the process hardcore. The way they make those films is very different to the way, ideally, I would make a film. So you just have to lean into the process and hope for the best. Basically, throw shit at a wall and hope it sticks. The best didn't happen this time, but you kind of have to trust in the machine. Yeah, the Marvel machine that's falling apart. Good job. It was interesting because there was, at a certain point, when I was like, okay, this isn't going to be the movie that I pitched, or even the first version of the movie that I shot. So I realised that this is now an experience, and it's a learning curve, and it really makes you stronger as a filmmaker in terms of your ability to navigate. You navigate away from shooting like this. So I just thought this was very, very funny. You know, there's a lot of filmmakers now that are coming out and saying, you know, saying that Marvel just isn't great to work with based along these lines. And I think that's good because, you know, if you want something to improve, I don't care if Marvel improves, quite frankly. But if you did, if you cared and you wanted them to improve, then open criticism and discourse will achieve it. So that's good. So there you go. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Take care. Bye-bye now.